Hello, everyone. I know I'm running a little late, and the reason I know I have on my hovering too, which is my most accurate watch. That's why I know I'm late. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hook up my little lapel thing so we don't have too much background noise here. Give me a second. Oh, hey, Rick, how are you? Happy Saturday to you too. Hi, Abdul and Bruce and Javier. And Bruce again. We got two Bruces. Pine Baron, Andre, Flip and Zippo. You're not late. You're right. Okay, hang on a second. And we may go to the dark side of the moon as I switch plugs here. Hang on a second. There you go. Come on, plug. There you are. Okay. Now, let me get this in. Okay. All set. Hey, Nephron. Hey, Big Sal. Buenos dias. KTNA. Sound okay? Picture okay? We're all set. All right. Today, what I thought would be fun to do, and this is, I think, would be a good thing to involve everyone, is to have a sort of a list of things that we would say, okay, we want a really good watch. And so what would a checklist be? I just noticed that my checklist that I had is it always comes up as a mirror image for some reason. So I'll have to take one of those selfies in front of a mirror and get it turned around. Hey, Rancher, Tim, how you doing? Lee? Let's see. Okay. Now, one of the things, let me get this out of the way right away so that we can sort of go on, is that first of all, I think accuracy with a mechanical watch. Now, mechanical watch aren't going to beat a quartz. All right. It sort of is a basic assumption. And so we're not talking about quartz watches. And so when we're talking about accuracy of a watch, I think that we have to look at, first of all, constant force, something that keeps the thing ticking. Now, there are all kinds of devices for constant force. So let's talk about those first. Hi, Indrajit. How you doing? Thomas. Hi, Thomas. Okay. So let me. What would be a Thomas? Thomas. A constant force, not a Thomas force, but a constant force that would be a good one to have. Hi, William. Stephen. Hi, Stephen. So let's get started. Constant force, starring Chuck Norris. Okay. As they say, Rancher, you're a card. You ought to be dealt with. Okay. A Fusi and chain. Yeah, I don't know if that's a starting point, but it might be in the sense that Fusi chains are from pocket watches, and they're pretty big, and there are very few watch companies that have them on a wristwatch. But that certainly would be one. Hi, Jonathan. So let's see what you got. Hey, Joseph. All right, so let's talk about that. Fusi chain is one. What would be another constant force thing that you actually have in one of your watches? Anybody? Abdul. Okay, that's different. Okay, you're talking to the rancher. You know, Abdul, you always get in trouble when you talk to the rancher. Okay. I really didn't care for either one of them. There you go. Um, let's talk about that again. So, what do you have? What one feature on a watch that you own actually is a remontoire? You would have a remontoire. A remontoire is something I've always wanted on a watch, but they're very expensive and there are very few of them. And Rick bought the last one that Gronfeld did, so we didn't leave any for the rest of us. But you're right, yeah. Uh, what is what happens with a remontoire that's important is that the way they maintain constant force is that they have a mainspring, and that mainspring rewinds a smaller spring that's used for the movement. And the what happens is that by rewinding the smaller spring, it keeps it keeps the force more constant. Okay. Let's say a watch had an in-house movement and it was really accurate, but very plain, almost to the point of being unfinished. Would you buy it? You know, that's this one. This watch is a very simple, very, very simple, but for some reason it is so accurate. And this is the Harboring 2 Felix and the A11. I don't know if any of the rest of you have an A11 or movement in your watch, which means if you have a Harboring 2, maybe a Kadoki, who knows? But it's this is plain. This is about as plain as you can get, but it's also incredibly accurate. And maybe what we're dealing with is one other factor is that we're dealing with a really good, there you go. Okay, now that's pretty plain. But it's incredibly well built, 4 hertz, nothing very fancy. Okay, William, a dual mainspring. Now, a dual mainspring, there's two types. One type is the serial, which is essentially designed for extending the charge so that if you have one like on a Powermatic 80, they put in a second uh, barrel, second mainspring to extend it from 40 to 80. So you have 80 hours instead of 40 because of that. Now, the kind that really works for a constant force is a mainspring in parallel, and a parallel mainspring is a lot more difficult to create. I have one in my FP Journe Chronomet, and all of you guys who have a, FP Journe Chronomet Souverain or Chronomet, Chronomet Blue, or one of those, they all have that. All right, and I've had really good luck. The problem that I have with my FP Journe, just one of them, I got two of them right next to each other in the same case box. One of them, the Chronomet Souverain, tends to get magnetized. The first time that happened, the guys at the boutique in New York, he said, "Let me get it demagnetized," and they put it in some whiz bang thing, and it demagnetized. And only recently, for some reason, it's magnetized again. And I've been trying to demagnetize it with my demagnetizer, but otherwise, it's really a wonderful way of maintaining constant force because you really have two barrels working in parallel with each other to to create a constant force on one source. Okay, the simple can be amazingly elegant as well. I really appreciate a clean dial and case design. Yes, that's true, but the they may not necessarily have a good constant force, but I also appreciate those. Okay, see, Arnold and Son constant force tourbillon has double barrel as well. Okay, now you have a parallel double barrel, and so you have the tourbillon as a constant force, and this is one I have my doubts about, and let me explain why. And this isn't true with all tourbillons. I realize that. Um, tourbillons were essentially designed for, I don't know, I don't have anything right here. It looks like a pocket watch, but we'll just say this is like a pocket watch. And a pocket watch you can carry around your pocket, and pretty much you have a you have this position, and as you move around a little, you got a tourbillon here in a cage, and it'll deal with some of the different movements. Now, what they have found is that a tourbillon on a wrist is gets a lot more movement than that, and so it doesn't quite work as well. Um, but that's I know that a lot of different watchmakers have tried different things with different tourbillons to make them work on a wrist. One that FP Jorn has is that the tourbillon is like this rather than like this in the cage, and also, Gerber and Forcey have also done some things with interesting things with tourbillons. Uh, Antoine Perzuzio has what he calls the tourbillon of tourbillons with multiple tourbillons. Uh, Daniel Roth has double tourbillons for one dealing with movements one way and one another, so that apparently there's something about them, but they're extremely expensive. Uh, the thing with apparently both with parallel double barrels and remontoirs, they're just hard to do. They're very hard to make, and so they're looking for something else. I can't imagine those being harder than a tourbillon, but apparently they must be. Also, too, another kind of thing was a double hairspring that will keep your balance wheel balanced. And the only one I know about that did that, and I may be wrong, is the H. Moser's Henry double hairspring. And that works great. I get wonderful time out of it. But when they quit making them, I wrote them and they said, look, it's just too expensive to create to have these opposite torque moving remontoirs. So I don't know. Any other ideas? Okay, I haven't magnetized a watch yet and work with studio speakers, mainly have watches with silicone hairspring. So yeah, now here's something I guess. Uh if you're working, if you have a two things have been encroaching where you have silicon encroachment, I'll call it that. One is with hairsprings and the other is with escapements. If you have an escapement wheel and a hairspring out of silicon, I don't think maybe even have a pallet fork made out of silicon, you're not going to have that key part magnetized ever. And so that's one way of maintaining accuracy by two ways actually. Silicon also is much better with heat and cold, uh, and so that'll keep it from being magnetized, and so it'll be more accurate. Silicon, though, is something I don't know. I'm still very I don't know why. I hate using the term slippery slope. So, yeah, well, we can put in some silicon here. Well, after all, quartz is nothing but silicon and oxygen. Why don't we just, because we know those quartz regulators going to work better, and pretty soon you're back to a quartz watch again. Um, I don't know. Not something I'm particularly interested in. I know that H. Moser and some of the other, and Rolex. Rolex Parachrome is niobium and chromium, and the one by H. Moser called the Strassmann hairspring is made of niobium and titanium. And I have two H. Mosers, both of them I have no problem with accuracy or magnetization. So you can do it without silicon. The problem with silicon, you can't adjust it. You can take you can adjust just about any other kind except silicon. You try to bend silicon and it's too brittle, it just won't work. So forget about it. What you can do, I suppose, if you have a silicon hairspring, but then you can adjust the weights on the balance wheel. Okay, free sprung balance is another one that is advocated for. I don't know if that's advocated for purity or no, you don't mess with the length of the hairspring. Okay, all right. What's Rancher doing now? Let's see. Double barrels look stunning. Yeah, that's true, Thomas. They look good. I got double barrels. Um, the flyover states double barrels usually are the prerequisite to a wedding. Yeah, and if they're parallel, that's a brother and sister wedding. Okay, let's see. Iron cage around a movement could be used. I think the new IWC 43 pilot has this, even with C2 case back. Oh, that's interesting, Abdul. The IWC pilot has an iron cage around the movement, and that is for what? Is that iron would not seem to be the thing to use if you want to keep it from magnetizing, but that is interesting. Seiko spring drive, not really my thing. I'd rather take classic Seiko high beat. Yeah, I'm the same way about Seiko. You can look at the engineering behind um, a Seiko, either a Seiko high beat or a Seiko spring drive, and say, "Wow, that's really cool." But you can do the same thing with a smartwatch, and say, "Wow, look at that architecture and how they got that into a size of a watch, and look at the programming and all of the other stuff that goes with it." And hi, Matt. Free sprung balance improves isochronism by getting rid of the regulator pins. Yeah, yeah, that's it. This is that's the idea. My Omega's uh, amagnetic. Yeah, an Omega also, an Omega's, they're using a lot of silicon in those too. I wonder if, the thing about the Omega, the best thing about an Omega to me is the George Daniels balance. What do they call that? Anyway, the balance, the escapement that they have. And that's a really cool thing. And then but I do believe you have silicon somewhere. It's either in a regulator or hairspring or somewhere in that. And yes, it would be amagnetic. Hi, Christian. Flippin' Zippo. Maybe we could put the new IWC against Milgauss in a cage match. There's an idea. Soft iron helps absorb and dissipate magnetism. That's why the Milgauss still has a non-silicon hairspring. Well, Matt, all of the Rolexes are have a non-silicon hairspring. They use parachrome, which is the chromium and niobium springs. So yeah, I don't I'm not sure whether it's soft or otherwise, but I that's something that I really respect about Rolex. Rolex has got uh, hell in a cell. Oh boy, there we go, flipping. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Okay, coax. That's the word I'm looking for. Thanks, William. And Big Sal. I don't know why. I was thinking of George Daniels. Ah. Okay. So what do we have so far? We have a Remontois, but very few watches used because they're very, very difficult to do, and which would add to the price, but that's okay. I still want one. Second of all would be a double hairspring in parallel. Let's set aside the magnetism and the silicon for now. And let me see, what else is there? There's something that we simply may call a really good production or sort of even craftsmanship. Craftsman. I think that's what keeps this thing so accurate. And I'm not. They have a. Oh boy, who knows the hairspring that's used in the Harboring 2? Trying to think. I think it may be a German hairspring. I know that they mention it, and they mention who makes the hairspring for them. I can't remember the name. Maybe one of you guys knows. Um, Hi, Andrew. Hell in a Cell. Oh, WWF. Okay. George Daniels created the coaxial escapement and Omega purchased the rights. Yeah. Yeah, that I know. I just couldn't remember the coaxial for some reason. That's one of those things. Every now and then there's certain watch terms that I go, "Wow, what is that called?" So I have to go back to the basics. Hi, Evgeny. How you doing? Handmade, hand wound by one watchmaker or a small manufacturer like FPJ. I agree. Or like Richard Harbring and Marie Harbring. Hi, Robert. How you doing? Rolex caliber 2236 has silicon. Yes, Robert, it does, but it's only in the Pearl Master, and it's only in a woman's watch, as far as I know. Um, Hi, Saladin. Strassman hairspring. Yes, 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 yes. That's the one by H. Moser. And the interesting thing about H. Moser, if you look at the sales records that they have, I was talking to the CEO, made a video of it a little over a year ago, and he was talking about the. I asked him, and he said, "Well, we sell maybe about 50, 60,000 hairsprings and maybe 2,000 watches." So that part of their business. Now, H. Moser has had some that have become very popular, and there's a waiting list on them right now. And that may be because of the pandemic, which we hoped was going to be over by now, but it's not. Okay. I guess the finish on all parts matters, and if they are machine made or man made, the finishing, um, the finishing, boy, oh boy, oh boy, how would the finishing? I'm not sure where the finishing, unless you have things that have a type of some kind of interaction like the gears, but that might that might have certainly affected. There's something else that is there are these things called wolf teeth, and they're um, Moser gears. Moser makes these special gears, and that also may have an effect on it. Yacht Master 37. I think that's also the woman's one, isn't it, Robert? For the Yacht Master, the smaller ones. Anyway, that's from what I know. Okay, hey Adolfo, how you doing? Buenos dias. Uh, Good to see you. Hader Raha, how about those gears without play, the Agenhar Panted? Oh my God, yes. Have you is everybody familiar with Hader Rajas is talking about? My God, they got these gears that are just amazing, and they actually have like little locks on them, and so that there's no play at all. Like, they go in, and it's sort of like a little spring that when the teeth go into the gear, there's enough spring in there so it holds them, and it's just an amazing one. Yes, that's a great one to bring up. Finish on functional parts like pivots and bearing surfaces. You're right, Matt. That's a good point. Um, the finishing move was Undertaker choke slamming Mankind through the cage. Oh, you guys are talking about. Okay. Nephron. I wonder if Rolex doesn't use silicon a lot on principle, or if it's just not something that's part of their vertical integration yet. Yeah, Nephron, it could be the one. There was a deal between Rolex, Patek Philippe, and Swatch, and they have the rights on silicon hairsprings, and that's about to run out pretty soon. And I talked to a friend of mine who's a watchmaker and also a former judge, and he was all excited about silicon hairsprings. And there's, of course, FP Journe visited a San Francisco silicon maker called Firehouse. There was an article on that, so I don't know. This may be spitting into the wind for all I know, but yeah, you know, it's sort of like short circuits everything else that's been done with hairsprings, and hairsprings is really the linchpin to a lot of things having to do with accuracy, and they're not affected by either magnetic forces or by heat and cold as much as uh, traditional hairsprings are. Hi, Brian. I really get a chance to catch you live. I just want to say, oh, good. Oh, great. Okay. I'll put in cartoons to make them more fun. 37 is mid-sized. Yeah, for something like a yacht master though, 37 I think is pretty small. Again, maybe I'm thinking about a Yacht Master 2, which I happen to really like a lot, and that has some really interesting um, what you may call horological technology inside of them, and I just not the old Yacht Master. What complications to make can propel a model or brand into excellence as opposed to gimmickry? Ooh, that's a good point, Rancher. That's a real good point. I knew you'd come up with something. We just had to get through the rest of this stuff. Walnuts and bestialities. Hey, great to see you. That's an amazing name. Okay, yeah. What complications? Which one aren't you know gimmickry? Um, I don't know. I That's hard to say. If I got a real cheap tourbillon from China or someplace, that might be just gimmickry. I don't know what you'd call it. I can't imagine most of the other things that you can't see. I mean, you can't see you can see a little, they have a little window, and you can see something with a rim and toile. But for the most part, the best things are like a double barrel. You can't tell it if I can. I mean, if I saw two double barrels and they said which one's parallel and which one's serial, I wouldn't know. So, you know, have you ever heard of micro brand called Zelos? Yeah, I have. They're teaming up with La Joux next year, for all their movements. Oh boy, La Joux uh, aren't they Perret? I'm not sure how to say it. I know the history of them. They come out of Jacques SA. This has got one of Jacques 736s in it. Um, and they're owned, I think they're still owned by Citizen. Um, and they have, I just don't know where they're ever going. Sometimes they seem to be going one way. They've been bought and sold a few times, I believe, and it's hard to say. But it's interesting, and I think the Zelos. I'm trying to remember. Trying to remember something about Zelos that are interesting. Zelos has, yeah, some interesting cases. They do. Hey, watch and pray. 34 millimeters Air King is small. What is a standard Air King is what, 40, something like that. I love Air Kings. Hey, Big Sal. Okay, I think to stick to the tried and tested approach and make small improvements over time instead of being I think so too, Big Sal. That pretty much defines them. But if they decide to have a change, look what Patek Philippe did. They changed everything over to silicon. And I think that's why they no longer have the Geneva seal. I think that was one of the things. Geneva seal said no silicon, and they told them, yeah. So the ones that seem to have the most Geneva seals these days are Vacheron Constantin and Roger Dubuis. Uh, Chopard has enough of their certain production in the Geneva cantons, so they have some too. And rats, we're out of time. Alarm complication, JLC, Memovox, and Vulcane. Okay, that's why if you have a Daniel Roth Premier retrograde, you should tell him every day about it. I agree. I have a 36 millimeter mid-size Omega. It's a perfect diameter and also the height. This is something about the size. Um, the size I might sort of would call a sweet spot between about 38 and 42 for me. But I've had bigger ones and smaller ones, and they all seem to work somehow. So I don't know. Hey, Jonathan, is Zelos the micro brand with this sapphire case? I don't know. Most watches today have a sapphire. Oh, wait a minute, sapphire case. I don't know. There's a this one person who lists sapphire cases a lot. So on High Horology Lounge. Okay, guys. Hey, Daniel, how you doing? Where you been, Daniel? Okay, we got to go. I'll be back at 4 o'clock today. Um, I, you know, I'm really looking forward to this upcoming watch time show in New York in late October. I really hope, though, that by then we can do it without masks, and so. But in the meantime, wear your mask. Just apparently even and get one with your watch on it. If you have your watch on it, that's more fun. And wear the stupid things. Anyway, we'll see you guys later. Take care. This is right. The watch then disappears from the market. Yeah, it's a disappearing watch. Okie doke. We'll see you guys later. And like I said, stay safe for God's sakes.